Why, hello there. I'm Josh. Here's the second video in this series documenting 9 faculty engaging in digital humanities for the first time during the summer of 2020. In this video, watch the 9 humanity faculty members introduce themselves and their digital research projects. These introductions were done in May, before the training and guidance they will receive throughout the summer. So there may be a little, or perhaps a little more of scope and or technology adjustments as they progress. I want to point out that the Fundamentals of Data Research Fellowship has 15 fellows this summer in 2020, with 10 humanities faculty and 5 graduate students. But this documentary will focus exclusively on 9 of the humanities faculty.
Paul Martin, Department of Religion. I teach theology and ethics. The project I'm working on is part of a larger book project on 2 kind of farm brothers who grew up in Missouri and end up teaching at Yale in Missouri, Reinhold Niebuhr and H. Richard Niebuhr. They're 2 of kind of North America's most prominent theological voices or ethical voices in the mid-20th century. And they write some letters earlier in their career, and we only have one side of the letters, but it's very clear that they think of themselves as doing the same project in different ways. And so nobody's really written on the relationship between their 2 kind of projects over their careers. So I'm going to start with text mining and looking at language, concepts, themes, terms as they develop in their corpus to see, in fact, if they are, because I know they are reading each other's works, and to see what that looks like.
Hello, my name is Nicole Kenley from the Baylor English Department, and I work on detective fiction and globalization. One of the things I've been studying is the way that detective fiction responds to the challenges of global crime. And the technologies that detective fiction uses to do that are forensic and digital. As you may imagine, there are literally hundreds of detective novels treating these technologies across the past 30 years. And while I can and do read some of them, what I'm hoping to do for this project is to use text data mining to create a corpus of these novels that I can then scan for certain terms, such as, for example, DNA, and see how those terms are growing and changing within the corpus of detective fiction. I'm hopeful this will give me some ideas about the way that the genre is responding to the threats of global crime.
I'm Scott Gibson. I'm from Truett, and I have been working on a project for actually a number of years. It's called Recent Homiletical Thought. I teach preaching at Truett, direct the PhD program there. And this is a project that actually builds on projects that have been done by homileticians that published basically an annotated bibliography of everything that's been written on preaching, whether it's books or theses, dissertations of different sorts, and articles. And this is building on what has already been done, but I've discovered in my work that their bibliographies aren't necessarily as thorough as one would think. I've been working with our colleagues, Josh and the team at the library, and building a website, which will be a searchable website for homiletic research.
My project is based on what I do in the Archivio di Stato in Florence, which is a 16th century late Renaissance painter named Michele Tosini. Tosini was a friend of Michelangelo, was in the same workshop as Michelangelo, and he's been a lifelong project. So my project itself is twofold, as I understand the process. The first is to map the original location, the current location, the subject matter of 300 paintings that have been attributed to Tosini over the years. I'm looking for trends in location, in subject matter, patronage, and now probably almost more importantly, collecting. But that leads to the second part of my project, which is text mining. There's a 5-volume series, a Carteggio it's called, but what that allows me to see is the patterns of patronage. The Medici, the Strozzi, the Pazzi, the Pitti, all those great Italian names that you've heard over your careers.
My name is Sam Parler. I'm assistant professor of music history. I focus on 20th century history and various forms of popular music, especially country music. My research this summer is looking at genre formation and musical performance venues in Fort Worth, Texas in the 1930s. I'm particularly interested in looking at relationships between the location of those venues and the types of music that were performed there. Fort Worth is regarded as being kind of the birthplace of Western swing music in the 1930s. And all the musicians thought they were performing jazz music, but all of the audiences thought they were performing country music. So I'm looking to see how sort of racial and class demographics maybe led to that conclusion on the part of the audiences.
And I'm an assistant professor of church and community ministries. I'm in social work, Truett, and the School of Education. My project is called Unfinished Business from the Great Migration to Black Lives Matter. And this project is basically a collection of oral histories of African Americans affiliated with churches in Pittsburgh. And in addition to having the transcripts from these oral histories, I will also have the materials, primary sources gathered from the participants, everything from letters, poems, music, as well as gathering some additional primary and secondary resources that I hope to learn, text mining, as well as network analysis to better identify patterns in these data, as well as understand the network of these people that have moved from southern states to the northern part of the country, and to also use data visualization to be able to map some of these trends.
Julie Holcomb, and I'm associate professor in the Department of Museum Studies. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to this summer. So my project's focusing on my research area. One of my research areas is Quakers in 19th century America, and so I am for this project or for this fellowship, I'm planning on focusing on a division that happened among Quakers in the late 1810s and 1820s that did not resolve itself until the 1950s. And so what I'm really hoping to do is to look at this period, this 10-year period between about 1819 and 1829, and doing some text mining and perhaps some data visualization, also maybe some mapping as well, figuring out, what are the issues. There's been a lot of debate about what led Quakers to act very un-Quaker-like in the 1820s and to split into these very bitter and opposing factions.
For how to look at civic ceremonies in Renaissance Portugal. So I, doing the dissertation, I did 15 different archives with multiple data sets, and I need a way to put visualizations, various data visualizations of things that I can see. Cognitively, my brain sees irregularities in the patterns, but narratively conveying that is very different than doing a nice data visualization. Mostly because I have price lists, I have, city magistrates, I have literally how much they paid for what type of cloth for the sleeves versus the vest and everything else. So one is just getting the data visualization to show all kinds of different vertices of power and purveyance and patronage and things like this. And then the second component would be most definitely the geographic component. The fact that what I'm particularly looking at are civic ceremonies celebrating the royal court.
My name is Nick Werse. I am the graduate writing coordinator for the EDD program in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction in the School of Education. My project is looking at the development of faith farming and education in rural Central Texas. So I'll be tracking some themes and how they change in rural newspapers.